Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning inside a body that isn't yours. Your jaw is wider, your teeth are perfectly straight, and there are 32 of them, and none of them have ever hurt. Your spine doesn't ache when you stand up. Your bones are so dense that a modern scanner would flag the result as an error. Your eyes can pick out movement in the grass half a kilometer away. You have never had a cavity. You have never had heartburn. Your blood pressure at 60 is the same as it was at 20, and you have never, in your entire life, seen a doctor. That body existed. Thousands of them existed, and we have found them. They are in the ground right now, under the dust of East Africa, under the ice of the Alps, under cave floors in Spain, in Israel, in Indonesia. Scientists pulled them out. They scanned them. They measured them. They put ancient bones inside the same machines we use on living patients. And what came back was uncomfortable. These people had no hospitals, no painkillers, no clean water, no surgery, no idea what a germ was, and by almost every measurement we know how to take, they were healthier than you. Not slightly, not in one lucky category, in almost all of them. So the question isn't whether it happened. The question is what happened to us. Because whatever it was, it didn't happen to them. It happened to you. It's happening to you right now, while you sit and watch this, in a room they would not recognize, in a body they would barely believe. Now, most people think they already know the answer. They'll tell you it's obvious. We got lazy. We sit too much. They walked all day. We walked to the fridge. Case closed. Scientists actually tested that. They went out to modern hunter-gatherer groups, the ones still living close to the old way, and they strapped on motion trackers. They measured how much those people moved. Then they used a technique that tracks water molecules through the body to measure exactly how many calories those hunter-gatherers burned in a day. Then they compared it to office workers, and the numbers came back wrong. The hunter-gatherers burned roughly the same number of calories per day as a person sitting in a chair in a city. Roughly the same. Think about that for a second. A man who walks 15 kilometers in the heat chasing an animal burns about what you burn answering emails. That should be impossible. And it means the story we've all been told, the simple one about movement and laziness, is not the answer. Something else is going on inside our bodies, something we handed over without noticing. And to find it, you have to start with the part of the skeleton that never lies. Teeth are the most honest thing a human body owns. Bone can heal and hide the evidence. Skin rots away. But a tooth records your life like a black box recorder. Every hungry season, every fever, every year you didn't get enough food. So when researchers started looking at the mouths of ancient hunter-gatherers, they expected the worst. These were people who ate raw meat, gnawed bone, chewed hide, and never once brushed anything. What they found was almost the opposite. Cavities were rare. In some hunter-gatherer populations, they show up in around 1 or 2% of teeth. Some groups barely show them at all. Compare that to now. In most modern countries, the vast majority of adults have had a cavity. Nearly all of us. But that's not even the strange part. The strange part is the shape. Ancient jaws were wide, broad, powerful, built like a tool. And in that jaw, every tooth had room. Straight rows, no crowding, no overlap. And the wisdom teeth? They came in, all 4 of them, normally, painlessly. They just grew in and did their job, because there was space for them. Now look at us. Crooked teeth are so common, we have an entire industry built on straightening them. Braces, retainers, aligners, millions of teenagers every year. And wisdom teeth have become something we surgically remove as a rite of passage. Millions of extractions a year, a body part we now schedule to have cut out of our heads. So what happened? Our teeth didn't change much. Our jaws did. They shrank. Somewhere along the line, the human jaw got smaller, and the teeth didn't get the memo. Same number of teeth, less room to put them. And the leading explanation for why is so simple it's almost insulting. We stopped chewing. Not less food, less work per bite. Think about what your ancestors put through their jaw in a single day. Tough roots that had to be broken down by hand and then ground by molar. Dried meat that fought back, sinew, fibrous stems, nuts and shells, marrow bones. Food that took real muscular effort and real time. Now think about what you have eaten in the last week. Almost none of it required your jaw to work hard for long. Bread, pasta, smoothies, sauce, meat cooked until it falls apart. Most of it barely resists your teeth at all. And when scientists tested this idea directly in animals, raising them on hard food versus soft food while everything else stayed the same, the soft food groups grew smaller, narrower faces. The bone had less reason to build, which means those crooked teeth you had straightened as a teenager were not bad luck. They were not a family curse. They were a message. Your jaw was built by your childhood, and your childhood was soft. Here's something most people never learn about their own body. Your bones are not scaffolding. They're not dead sticks holding you upright. Bone is a living tissue that listens. It listens to force. Every time you load a bone, it gets a signal. This is how much stress you're under. Build accordingly. Load it more, it thickens. Load it less, it thins out and quietly gives the material back. Your jaw works the same way. Grow up chewing tough, fibrous, hard food for hours a day, and the jaw is loaded constantly during the years it's forming. It grows wide. It grows strong. It grows enough room for every tooth you own. Grow up on soft bread, soft meat, blended food, food that dissolves before it fights back, and that signal never arrives. The teeth still come, the room doesn't. And once you understand that principle, you can't unsee it in the rest of the skeleton. Researchers in Cambridge compared the leg bones of ancient farming and foraging women with the leg bones of modern women, including university athletes, runners, footballers, rowers. The ancient women's leg bones held up. In some measures of bone strength, women who lived thousands of years ago outperformed modern competitive athletes. Not athletes from a special program, ordinary women, whose entire training regime was exist. Their bones were built by a life that never stopped loading them, grinding grain by hand for hours, carrying children, carrying water, carrying everything. And here's what makes it land. Bone loss isn't ancient history. It's the reason an older person today can break a hip stepping off a curb and never fully recover from it. It's one of the quiet ways modern life ends. Their skeletons were being written by their days. So are yours. The question is what your days are writing. If you're finding these forgotten truths about the ancient human body as unsettling as I do, subscribe now, because the next discovery is the one that made scientists call the biggest turning point in human history a catastrophe. For a long time, the story went like this. Humans discovered farming. Farming meant food. Food meant safety. Safety meant civilization. Straight line, up and to the right. Progress. Then, people started digging up the graves from either side of that line. Skeletons from before farming. Skeletons from after. And the after was worse. Height dropped. In several regions, populations lost several centimeters of average height within a few generations of the switch to agriculture. Cavities exploded. The rare hole in the tooth became normal because grain is soft and starchy, and it feeds the bacteria in your mouth like nothing before it. Their teeth started showing horizontal lines etched into the enamel. Those lines are stress marks. They form when a child's body is so starved or so sick that tooth growth briefly stops. Whole populations wearing a permanent record of childhood hunger in their smile. Then came the skulls with a spongy, porous texture near the eye sockets, a signature often linked to severe anemia and nutritional stress. And then the worst of it. Farming meant staying put. Staying put meant living beside your own waste. It meant crowds. And it meant living inches away from animals for the first time in human history. Cows, pigs, goats, chickens. Their diseases learned to jump. Measles, tuberculosis, influenza, smallpox. A huge share of the infections that have hunted humanity ever since came out of that arrangement. One well-known scientist called agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race, which raises the obvious problem. If farming made people shorter, sicker, weaker, and more diseased, why on earth did it win? Why didn't everyone go back? Because farming was never about making individual humans healthier. Farming was about making more humans. A hunter-gatherer band moves, and a woman who moves can realistically carry one small child at a time. Births had to be spaced. Groups stayed small by necessity. Settle down, add grain that can be mashed into soft food for a baby, and that spacing collapses. Children can be weaned earlier. More children survive to have children, so farming populations grew. Not healthier, just more. And in a competition between a healthy group of 30 and a sicker group of 300, health is not the deciding factor. Nobody sat down and chose this. There was no vote. No moment where a village weighed strong bones against a full grain store. It happened one small, sensible decision at a time. Plant a few seeds this year because last winter was bad. Stay a season longer because the field is doing well. Keep the animals close because it's easier than tracking them. 10,000 years later, you're standing in a supermarket, and every single one of those decisions is still inside your body. But if the damage started with farming, that only explains part of it, because the sickest thing about the modern human body is something farming never did. There's a detail in the hunter-gatherer diet that almost nobody talks about, because it isn't dramatic and it doesn't sound dangerous. Fiber, the rough, indigestible structure of a plant, the part your body can't break down, the part that, for most of human history, came attached to absolutely everything a person ate, because there was no way to take it off. You couldn't buy a stripped-down version of a tuber. You couldn't get the sugar out of a berry and leave the rest behind. If you wanted the calories, you ate the whole thing, structure included. Estimates for traditional foraging diets put fiber intake at levels many times higher than what's typical in industrialized countries today. Not slightly higher, several times over. And here's why that matters more than it sounds. Remember those trillions of bacteria in your gut? Most of them are not eating what you're eating. They're eating what you can't digest. Fiber is their food supply. Feed them, and they produce compounds that help maintain the lining of your gut and help keep your immune system calm. Starve them, and studies in animals suggest something unsettling. When the fiber runs out, some of those bacteria start eating the protective mucus layer of the gut wall instead. They eat the wall. Because we didn't just change what we eat, we invented an entirely new category of substance. Food engineered to be soft, sweet, calorie-dense, stripped of structure, and almost impossible to stop eating. Nothing in the natural world tastes like that. Nothing in the natural world was ever designed to. Your ancestors ate things that fought back at every stage, in the finding, in the chewing, in the digesting. You eat things designed to surrender. And that has consequences much further from your stomach than you'd guess, including in the organ that will most likely kill you. Deep in the Bolivian Amazon lives a group of forager farmers who still live largely the old way. They grow some food, they hunt, they fish, they walk enormous distances every day. A team of scientists brought them to the technology instead of the other way around. They scanned their hearts using CT imaging, looking for calcium deposits in the coronary arteries. That's the hard evidence of the disease that clogs and hardens the blood vessels feeding your heart. Then they compared the results to thousands of adults in the United States. The result was the lowest level of measured coronary artery disease of any population ever studied. Nearly 9 out of 10 of these people had no sign of it at all. And the number that should genuinely stop you. An 80-year-old from that group tended to have the arteries of an American in their mid-50s. 30 years of aging, gone, from the organ that kills more people worldwide than anything else. And this is not one strange tribe. Similar findings show up elsewhere. On islands in the Pacific, researchers studying communities living traditionally found heart attacks and strokes to be almost unheard of. In some of those places, even severe acne was essentially absent. So they didn't have our biggest killer. They didn't have our second biggest killer either, which brings us back to the impossible calorie number from the beginning of this video. Because if they weren't burning more energy than us, and they were moving all day anyway, there's only one place that leftover energy could be going. And that answer is the strangest one in this entire story. Your body has a budget. It seems to guard the total. When you push activity up, the body doesn't just add the cost on top forever. Over time, it seems to trim elsewhere, quietly, in systems you can't feel. That's the leading explanation for the calorie mystery. Hunter-gatherers spend a huge chunk of their daily budget on movement, and their bodies balance the books by spending less somewhere else. You don't spend it on movement, so your body spends it on other things. Some of that spending is useful. Some of it is not. Inflammation is the clearest example. Inflammation is your body's emergency response. Redness, swelling, heat, the immune system flooding a damaged area. In short bursts, it's how you heal a cut or fight an infection. It's survival. But when it never switches off, when it runs low and constant in the background for decades, it is involved in almost everything on the modern list. Heart disease, diabetes, some cancers, certain conditions of the aging brain. The same system that saved your ancestors from a wound in the leg is, in a body that never stops eating and never really moves, running quietly against you. And here's the line that makes it real. You are not being punished for laziness. Your body is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's just doing it in a world it was never designed for. That mismatch has a name in science. It shows up everywhere once you know where to look, including in the one place nobody expects. You are not one organism. Inside you, mostly in your gut, live trillions of bacteria. Together, they weigh about as much as your brain. They help digest what you eat. They train your immune system. They produce chemicals that reach your bloodstream and your brain. Researchers went out to a hunter-gatherer group in Tanzania and studied what was living inside them. Two things came back. First, their gut communities were far more diverse than a typical Western gut. Many more kinds of bacteria doing many more jobs. Second, and this is the eerie part, their gut changed with the seasons. In the wet season, when they ate more plants and berries, one set of bacteria rose. In the dry season, when meat dominated, the population shifted. Their inner ecosystem breathed in and out with the year, like the landscape around them. Then the researchers compared it to us and found that certain groups of bacteria that are common and abundant in traditional populations are rare in the industrialized world. Some appear to have simply gone missing, not from one person, from entire industrialized populations. Scientists have a phrase for this idea, the disappearing microbiota. The theory is that with processed food, antibiotics, sanitation, and a diet that barely changes across the year, we've been quietly losing passengers our bodies spent hundreds of thousands of years learning to work with. And when a species disappears from an ecosystem, the ecosystem does not stay the same. We just can't see this one. But surely, you're thinking, at least we sleep better than they did. We have beds, blackout curtains, heating, silence. That assumption is where this story turns. A team of researchers went to 3 separate pre-industrial societies on 2 continents with no electricity and no artificial light. They put sleep trackers on people and recorded for over 1,000 nights combined exactly how humans sleep when nothing modern touches them. The expectation was obvious. No screens, no streetlights, no noise. Long, deep, generous sleep. 9 hours, maybe 10. What they measured was between roughly 5.5 and 7 hours a night. That's not more than us. In many cases, that's less. Think about that. Everything we blame for our exhaustion, the phones, the lights, the noise, and the people without any of it are sleeping about the same or less. And it gets stranger. They didn't fall asleep when the sun went down. They usually stayed up several hours past sunset, around a fire, talking. They tended to wake before dawn. They didn't sleep more in winter than summer in the way you'd expect, but their sleep tracked something else closely, the falling temperature at night. And in those languages, researchers reported no real word for insomnia. When they described the condition, people struggled to recognize it as a thing that happens. So they slept less and slept better, which means the problem was never the number of hours. It was something about the way our nights are built now. And that same pattern, the fix that broke something else, shows up in the human eye. There's one more thing you can read from an ancient skeleton, and it's the most personal one. You can read what a person did. Bone remembers labor. Where a muscle pulled hard for years, the bone thickens at the attachment point and leaves a mark. Where a joint took repeated load, the surface changes. So archaeologists can look at a skeleton and see the outline of a life. This one carried heavy loads on one shoulder. This one drew a bow. This one ground grain, kneeling, for thousands of hours, and it wore the knees and toes into a distinctive shape. Now imagine someone doing that to your skeleton in 10,000 years. What would they see? A neck that spent decades tilted forward at the same angle, shoulders rolled in, hips that never opened, a spine that spent most of its waking life in a shape it was never built to hold. And they'd notice the strangest thing of all. There would be no seasons in it. Ancient bodies were shaped by a year that changed. Hard months, easy months, feast and scarcity, cold that forced movement, heat that forced rest. Their bones recorded a rhythm. Ours record a flat line. The same posture, the same temperature, the same food, the same light, every single day, for 50 years. Our species built its body over hundreds of thousands of years of variation. Then we removed the variation and kept only the comfort. And even the parts of you that seem to have nothing to do with any of this have been quietly reshaped by it. Even the way you see. Look around a classroom in parts of East Asia today, and in some studies of young adults, the large majority are nearsighted. In some urban groups, the figures have climbed to extraordinary levels. Across Europe and North America, the numbers have been rising hard too. Nearsightedness at that scale is new. It is not what human eyes have historically done, and the cause is not what most people assume. For a long time, everyone blamed reading, then screens, then phones. But when researchers looked closely, a different factor kept coming up: time spent outside. Children who spend more hours outdoors in daylight seem to be less likely to become nearsighted. And trials that deliberately added outdoor time to the school day have found it can slow the development of it. The leading explanation is light. Outdoor light is vastly brighter than indoor light, even on a gray day, and that brightness appears to trigger signals in the eye that help control how the eyeball grows. Ancient humans lived in that light all day. Their eyes were shaped by open horizons and long distances. We grew ours in boxes. So here it is. Their teeth beat ours. Their bones beat ours. Their hearts beat ours. Their gut beat ours. Their sleep beat ours. Their eyes beat ours. Which brings us to the obvious conclusion. They lived in some kind of lost paradise, and we destroyed it. Except that conclusion is completely wrong, and the evidence against it is brutal. Around 5,000 years ago, a man died high in the Alps. The ice took him and kept him, skin and organs and stomach contents intact, until hikers found him. He is the best preserved ancient human we have, and he is the perfect test case. So they scanned him, and they found hardened deposits in his arteries, heart disease. In a man who spent his life walking mountains and eating wild food, they found parasites in his gut, worn, damaged joints, signs of a body that had taken a beating for decades. And he didn't die of any of that. He died from an arrow in the shoulder and a blow to the head. Then a larger project scanned mummies from 4 separate ancient populations across different continents and lifestyles, including foragers. They found signs of hardened arteries in all of them. So no, they didn't escape everything. Aging did what aging does. And that's before the real horror: childhood. In many pre-industrial populations, something like a quarter of babies did not survive their first year. Close to half didn't reach adulthood. Every family, everywhere, buried children. That was normal. Childbirth killed mothers routinely. An infected cut could end you. A broken leg in the wrong place could end you. A tooth abscess could get into your blood and end you. And starvation was not a story. It was a season that came around. Look closely at those same beautiful hunter-gatherer skeletons, and you'll find the rest of it. Healed fractures. Bones that were broken and set themselves crooked because nobody could set them properly. Skulls with dents in them. Arrow points lodged in ribs. Joints ground down by decades of work with no way to stop working. Their teeth had no cavities, true, but older individuals often had teeth worn flat, right down toward the nerve, from a lifetime of chewing grit and sand out of the ground. And an exposed nerve in a world with no dentist is not a minor inconvenience. It's a slow, screaming torture that can end in an infection that reaches the brain. So picture the real version: a body with dense bones and clean arteries and perfect eyesight, carrying a badly healed leg, a rotting molar, a parasite load, and the memory of 2 children it buried before either could walk. That is the trade. Not a paradise, a trade. So when you hear that ancient life expectancy was around 30, remember what that number really is. It's an average, and it's being dragged down by all those dead children. Survive childhood, and your odds changed completely. Adults in many hunter-gatherer groups who made it past the dangerous years commonly reached their 60s and 70s, which finally gives us the answer to the whole question. Ancient humans were not healthier than us because they knew something we forgot. They were healthier than us because of what killed them. Their world killed people fast. Infection, injury, childbirth, predators, hunger, violence. Death arrived quickly, and it arrived early. and the bodies it left behind never had the decades required to develop our diseases. Our world killed those things. That is not a small achievement. It is the greatest thing our species has ever done. Clean water, vaccines, antibiotics, surgery, refrigeration. We took the causes of death that stalked every human generation before us, and we deleted most of them. And in doing it, we handed our bodies a new problem they had no design for. 70, 80, 90 years of life. Soft food, constant food, still bodies, dim rooms, endless light at night, and a background hum of inflammation that never gets switched off. We didn't get weaker. We got a different death. They died young in strong bodies. We die old in worn ones. And the mismatch between the body you inherited and the world you live in is not a metaphor. It is happening in your jaw, in your spine, in your arteries, in your gut, in your eyes, right now, while you sit still. Your body is still expecting hard food, long walks, bright mornings, dark nights, hunger that comes and goes, movement without purpose or schedule. And here's the part that should stay with you after this video ends. None of this makes the past better. Nobody watching this would survive a week in it, and almost nobody watching this would want to. Given the choice between a strong body that buries 3 of its children and a worn body that keeps all of them, every single one of us picks the same way. That is not weakness. That is the entire point of what we built. But we built it fast. 12,000 years is a blink. Your body has not had time to catch up with your kitchen, your chair, your ceiling light, or your phone. It is running ancient software on a world it has never seen before, and it is doing it without complaint, and it will keep doing it right up until the moment it can't. That is why those skeletons are so unsettling. They are not a lost paradise. They are a control group. They are what the human body looks like when it lives in the conditions it was actually built for. Every one of those ancient people is a measurement taken before the experiment started. And the experiment is us. We are the first generation of humans to grow old in large numbers, which means we are the first generation to find out, in detail, what a human body actually does when you give it 80 years and take away everything that used to shape it. Nobody has done this before. There is no earlier group to ask. It is still waiting for that world. It has been waiting for 12,000 years, and it has no idea it's not coming back.